Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Pantherology. Welcome to my NFL Week 3 picks of the 2020 season. Go ahead and smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and Panther Nation, keep pounding. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. So the first game up on the board that we have is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go ahead and say the Jacksonville Jaguars win this game 31-27. The Dolphins and the Jaguars both installed new offenses this offseason. They both have resourceful quarterbacks. The difference is, I think, is that the Jaguars offensive coordinator, apparently he has mastered the art of distance learning and enjoys a promising array of young talent, including rookies Laviska Shenault Jr. and James Robinson, while Dolphins' offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey, is coaching for the first time since 2016 and mostly trying to work with desperate parts that resemble leftovers, in my opinion. In a game where neither defenses inspire confidence, but I think Gardner Minshew is playing too well to pick against, so that's why I'm going with him. And also, the Miami Dolphins lost Byron Jones, who is probably their best cornerback on the team. So, 31-27 Jacksonville Jaguars. Next game's the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Houston Texans. I don't know who made the schedule for the Houston Texans, but they're obviously getting revenge against the Texans. Deshaun Watson is the league's most sacked quarterback again this year. The right side of the offensive line is non-existent, and now that Houston has to deal with T.J. Watt, who's probably the best pass edger in the NFL. The Steelers have 73 pressures through 2 weeks, and that's an outrageous number. It also speaks to cornerback Mike Hilton's status as the best defensive back blitzer this side of Jamal Adams. Both of these offenses are still searching for what they need to do consistently well, but sometimes picking games shouldn't be this complicated. Pittsburgh players on both sides of the ball, I think, are just simply better. There's little reason to believe that Houston's coaching makes up the difference. And I got the Steelers in this 28-21. All right, next game is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, so Carson Wentz is missing easy layups, and Joe Burrow doesn't have any. The Eagles' defense reinforcement should be rounding into form, I think. The Bengals' Geno Atkins remains nowhere to be seen. It's hard to overstate how bad the Eagles' offense has been through 2 weeks. The unit currently is dead last in efficiency. But Miles Sanders should run wild in a matchup designed to soothe the Philly faithful. Even better, one win and 2 losses might be good for first place in the NFC East by the end of the weekend, so we'll see. All right, next game is the New York Giants versus the San Francisco 49ers. All right, Kyle Shanahan is so taken for granted in San Francisco, who just won a big road blowout with a team of backups, and no one even blinked. It would be as easy a second time around in MetLife. It won't be as easy a second time around going into MetLife Stadium with Nick Mullins starting at quarterback this Sunday. The 49ers are somehow the most forgiving defense the 0-2 Giants have faced thus far. And despite Saquon Barkley's season-ending injury, there have been glimmers of hope for the Big Blue with a more professional-looking defense. In other words, they aren't the Jets. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the New York Giants win 20-19 over the San Francisco 49ers, and Daniel Jones just balls out. And watch out for Dion Lewis. Next game, the New England Patriots versus the Las Vegas Raiders. For me, this is a brutal matchup for both defensive fronts. The Raiders' late 80s playing style is perfectly crafted to wear down defenses like New England, which is designed to play with 6 defensive backs and invite the opposition to run. Derek Carr has barely been touched in the 2 weeks. That doesn't figure to change against the Patriots team, where Chase Vinovich is the best front 7 player. The Raiders' pass rush doesn't have it any better against cohesive New England offensive line. After Cam Newton proved he is throwing as well as ever in week 2, the Patriots present at a lot to defend, even if their wide receivers are mostly moving at Witten speed. Possessions and defensive stops figure it to be at a premium. So I give the edge to Bill Belichick in this, in a tight game where situational football makes the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and say New England wins 28-24. So all week I've been planning to pick the Vikings to win this game. Team with this much established talent usually respond before torpedoing their season 0-3, and the Titans' 2 wins came against so-so opponents with a fair bit of luck. The game is in Minnesota. Then I game past the Vikings' loss to the Colts and realize it's the established talent that is part of the problem. Kirk Cousins is overthinking decisions. Eric Kendricks doesn't look like himself in coverage, and his tag team partner Anthony Barr is now on injured reserve. The Viking safeties are busy spending all their time covering for teams' young cornerbacks. That leaves their run defense vulnerable, which is not ideal with Derek Brown coming into town. When a team shows you they are bad for 2 straight weeks, sometimes you have to believe in them. But I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans and over the Minnesota Vikings 23-20 in a close one. All right, next game. The Cleveland Browns versus the Washington football team. The schedule makers did the discombobulated Browns defense a massive favor by serving them Cincinnati and Washington in successive weeks. Dwayne Haskins led passing game appears to be hitting week 3 of its preseason, which is not surpassing. The front-loaded Washington defense, meanwhile, is ranked first in efficiency against the pass, mediocre against the run. That sets up for Browns coach Kevin Stefanski, as he knows his solid offensive line, better tandem of backs is enough to win this game on their own. It sounds simple, but this is the type of game that the 2019's Browns would find a way to make it complicated. So I'm going to take the Browns, though, 24-18. All right, next game. Los Angeles Rams versus the Buffalo Bills. All right, so this is a fascinating test, I think, for Josh Allen. After the Bills quarterback spent the first 2 weeks of the season devouring cupcakes. Play caller, I think Brian Daboll is feeling himself, and there aren't many defenses right now that can match up with the Buffalo Bills' depth of the offensive weapons they have. A tall order even for an underrated Los Angeles secondary playing while under new coordinator Brandon Staley. The Bills' defense could be the bigger issue here, though, especially if the top linebackers aren't healthy against a Rams team that is second to none at flooding the middle of the field. Bills cornerback Levi Wallace is also struggling, and there are a few coaches better than Sean McVay at identifying weakness and hammering them. LA and Buffalo are both looking to be playoff teams, I think, that didn't need a preseason. So I'm going to go ahead and say, God, this is a tough one for me. I hate to go against my buddy here, but I'm going to go ahead and say the Rams pull off the win against the Buffalo Bills, and I think that the Rams win 30-27. Don Mafia is not going to like that. All right, Atlanta Falcons versus the Chicago Bears. All right, so the last time these two quarterbacks faced off, the Falcons defense won the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. If that trend continues, Dan Quinn might not be kept around to keep the streak going. While Mitch Trubisky has made some nice throws and the Bears' running game is undeniably better this season, Chicago's offense still ranks 24th in efficiency because of the long stretches of inactive against mediocre defenses. The Bears are a defense-first team, and the defensive line featuring Robert Quinn, Khalil Mack, and Akeem Hicks is now cooking with gas. This presents an excellent test for the Falcons' offensive line that suddenly can pass block, allowing Matt Ryan to play as well as you possibly can for an 0-2 team. He's playing too well to go 0-3. So I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons here, 24-20. All right, Los Angeles Chargers versus the Carolina Panthers. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Not going to get into it like I have with these other games because I'm putting a video out about this. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the Carolina Panthers win this game 27-22. All right, Seattle Seahawks versus the Dallas Cowboys. Both of these teams are very good. The offenses are on schedule. The defenses have no pass rush, though. That development is more surprising in Dallas considering Jerry Jones' defensive investments up front, and will be a huge problem against Russell Wilson, who's off to a near perfect start to this season. The Cowboys offense is too diverse to be held down by a Seattle defense that looks ordinary despite its big names. This is another test of how much the Seahawks will let Russ cook, because the Dallas team is eminently attackable through the air. So I'm going to go ahead and say take the Seahawks 33-30. Another close one for the Dallas Cowboys, but I like Seattle on this. All right, next game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Denver Broncos. With the fact that the Broncos came within 15 yards of taking a late lead in Pittsburgh, despite losing starter quarterback Drew Lock to a shoulder injury when the game was still scoreless in the first quarter, this is what Vic Fango's Broncos teams do, especially early in the season. Even with number one wideout Courtland Sutton, who they lost to a torn ACL. Rookie wideouts Jared Jeudy and KJ Hamler are legit. And tight end Noah Fant is making the leap, and Fangio's defense scrambles opposing quarterbacks no matter how many starters it's missing. Tom Brady's Bucs offense, meanwhile, did not look as cohesive as Tampa's final tally in the win over us, the Panthers. The 43-year-old quarterback barely faced any pressure, of course, and the Buccaneers still made many mistakes, in my opinion. Brady's teams have won 220 regular season games that he has started, compared with just one of the Broncos starter Jeff Driscoll. But this game promises to be closer than you expected, guys. But I am going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-21. All right, the next game is the Arizona Cardinals versus the Detroit Lions. All right, it's not a surprise to me that the Lions defense is struggling under Matt Patricia. That's what they've done for the past 3 years, guys. And injuries don't help. And neither does the fact that the number 3 overall pick, Jeff Okudah, doesn't look ready for prime time after being bullied by Aaron Rodgers a week ago. It's a big surprise that Matthew Stafford in the Lions offense, to me, is so iffy or 50-50. Although the return of their number 1 wide receiver, Kenny Golladay, if he is indeed good to go on Sunday after missing the last 2 weeks with a hamstring injury, definitely should help. While the gap between these teams is not as big as their records indicate, it's hard to pick against the Cardinals in a matchup where Kyler Murray's arm should catch up to his legs. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the Arizona Cardinals win 30-28. All right, next game, big game. The Green Bay Packers versus the New Orleans Saints. All right, Sean Payton, I think, is trying to figure out which plays work with his erratic version of Drew Brees, supported by number 1 wide receiver Tre'Quan Smith. And Aaron Rodgers spent the fourth quarter of last week's win with his arm around Matt LaFleur. And the Packers can win with this quick stuff or deep bombs with the pass or the run. The Saints' best hope is rejuvenated Alvin Kamara against a Mike Pettine defense, usually allergic to stopping the run. But this is a New Orleans offense, I think, with far less margin for error than usual. The other side of Brees missing passes took attention away from the Saints defense, I think, that didn't force the Raiders to punt after the first quarter on Monday night. The Packers can go big and grind defenses to powder, just like the Raiders did. Green Bay has more ways to win. So I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here, and I'm actually going to go 27-24. I think it's still going to be close, though. Last but not least, the Monday night game. Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a tough game to pick for me. Pat Mahomes as an underdog feels like a crime, to be honest. Yet there's no question that the Ravens have looked like the NFL's best team early. They passed the numbers test and the eye test. The Chiefs are 2-0 without having their offense in gear. 30 quarterbacks have more completions of 20-plus yards than Mahomes, including Jeff Driscoll. The Chiefs rank 17th in yards per play, which is 5.7, and their offensive line has looked ordinary. I have no question that Kansas City will snap out of it, but it's facing a Ravens team that looks faster on offense. Miles Boykin, J.K. Dobbins, and a tougher one on defense with Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe. This shapes up as the early season message from the Ravens that the Chiefs will have to respond to in January, probably back in Baltimore. So I'm actually going to take Baltimore in this, and I'm going to say 35-31 Baltimore. So guys, that is my week 3 predictions for this week of the NFL 2020 season. Go ahead and pound that like button, pound the subscribe button, comment down below, let me know who you think is going to win. And guys, Panther Nation, Pantherologists, keep pounding.